Hi, everyone. So, in this month's consciousness engineering class, I want to introduce you to a guy who has had a unique impact on my life. But first, an interesting backstory. So, it was 2009, and I was relatively unknown. Mind Valley wasn't the brand it is today, and I was a struggling entrepreneur. But I was smart enough to really try to invest in understanding this whole idea of networking and creating connections. I was in Asia trying to build an American publishing company. And so networking was probably one of the only ways I could reach out and connect to authors that I cared about, people whose work I wanted to publish. Now, what happened was I ended up joining a networking group started by this man, Larry Benet. He is a brilliant person when it comes to connection. There's so many incredible stories of Larry about how he would meet a billionaire at a party and in 1 minute know exactly the right thing to say to get the billionaire's phone number. So I was fascinated by Larry and I learned a ton from him in terms of networking. But the best thing I can say about Larry is this. In 2009, I found myself in a really unique position. I had networked my way to such a level that it was the finals of American Idol, and I got a personal invitation from Paula Abdul to come and sit with her in the VIP section to watch the finals of American Idol. Except I had to say no to Paula because I had another amazing opportunity happening. I was in the Virgin Islands hanging out with Richard Branson on his private island, racing speedboats that very same day. So that was probably one of the highlights of my life, that I had to say no to sitting with the Paula Abdul at American Idol because I was racing speedboats with billionaire Richard Branson. Now, you want to know something funny? The guy who indirectly connected me to both of these people is the man I have on the call today. His name is Larry Benet. I met Paula because at one of Larry's networking events, he connected me to an author who was working with Paula. And that author brought me in to help Paula with her social media strategy. I basically helped Paula get on Twitter. Today she has over 1 million Twitter fans. And I knew Richard Branson because through Larry at his event, it was an event in Vegas, I met a guy who was Richard Branson's #1 fundraiser, who ended up helping me get with a group of entrepreneurs who were visiting Branson on his island. Both of those connections I could directly trace to this one man, Larry Benet. That's how good he is. So what we're going to do in this call is I've asked Larry to join me, and I'm a big believer in honoring my teachers. Larry is one of my teachers. And I wanted to have Larry share his wisdom with you because he's made a profound impact on my life. My life would be invariably less awesome right now if I hadn't bumped into this man at a party all the way back in 2008. And that's why I wanted to bring Larry on so he could share some of his wisdom with you guys. So let's get started. Larry, how are you today?
I am doing good. I had never actually heard that story, which is pretty cool. I didn't realize that, but
So
it's been awesome. It's been an awesome run to have watched you from the time we were in Napa to where you are today. It's been pretty awesome to see all that you've done and all that you've achieved. So I'm
thank you,
glad I'm
Larry.
a little part of that.
Thank you, Larry. Well, you've been a big part of that, and I'm glad I have amazing teachers like you. So in today's call, what I wanted to do is to have you teach this group of about 4,000 people who are passionate about growing and enhancing every aspect of their being, how they can apply networking so that they can deliver value and connect with incredible individuals. Because we've all heard that quote, right? You are the sum of the 5 people closest to you. So the more amazing people we get to connect with, the more people we get to bring into our circle, the faster we grow. It's one of the fastest paths to growth. So I'm going to shut up for a second and let you teach some of your basic models for connection. Are you ready to go?
Absolutely. So I think just a good place to start is, I mean, I don't even, a lot of people don't even like the word networking. So I think, you talked about belief. We talked about belief in systems prior to this call. So let's talk a little bit about belief. One of the things you indicated that you had a chance and you got invited to American Idol's finale by Paula Abdul. But here's what happens. Someone will meet someone famous or well-known or influential on the first time. And what most people try to do, they try to take something from the relationship, whatever that might be. And a much better strategy is how do you give, how do you invest, how do you serve that individual? And so from just a belief standpoint, if you focus on becoming a giver of value versus someone who tends to be a taker, if you think about, I don't know, maybe for every 100 people that I meet, unfortunately, most people are focused so much on themselves, their goals, their objectives, their needs, their dreams, their desires. I think if you flip it 180 degrees and you focus on what is important to the people in your network, who are the most valued relationships that you care about, and you start on helping them with their goals, their dreams, their desires, their hopes. You know, you met Paula Abdul, and one of the things you did when she was just getting started online, you showed her some better strategies on how to get online, how to use social media. And you, like you said, you're rewarded, you know, with an invitation down the road. And all I'm saying, that's just a different structure, and that's a different belief system than what most people have. And so I think if everyone has this mindset of long term, and you can invest in a relationship, I think it'll just come back to you tenfold. And it's 10 times easier to go build a relationship with anyone that you want, whether that might be Richard Branson, Paula Abdul, or whoever might be in your local business market that might be important to you, so whoever's listening to this video.
That's very, very, very true. And I want to add on something there that I learned actually from you. I noticed that at these events where I first met you at, you would connect with remarkable people, but your one of the first questions was, so how can I help you? What are you looking for in life? Let me see if I know anyone whom I can match you, you know, like connect you with. And you just did that with me. When we started this call, you asked me how my business was going and if there was anyone you knew in your network that you connect me to. That is such incredible currency. It helps me, you're serving, and it makes me trust you and want to in turn give back to you and connect you and endorse you, right?
You know, so what's interesting is you said a couple key things there. So first of all, I think it's critical to have high trust. In Stephen M. R. Covey's book, The Speed of Trust, it's a fact. High trust organizations are 3 times more profitable. They can get deals done in a fraction of the time. Put it a different way, and these are terms that Stephen came up with, but he talks about there's a tax. If you don't have trust, it may take you 3 times as long to get the project done, to get access to the individual you want, to close the sale, whatever it is. So a strategy is when you tap into what's most important to someone else. So one of the things that I will typically do, assuming I have rapport, typically within the first few minutes of meeting someone, I will ask them what's their most important project, what's their most important goal, what are they working on right now, what are they most excited about in life. And I'll either find out, it could be something personal, maybe it's something for your son, maybe it's something for your business. And right before the call, we were talking about you fundraising
Right.
for one of your businesses. And to me, the best way of creating high trust is bringing something of value to your client, bringing something of value to someone you know, again, it could be someone you just met, it could be a long-standing relationship, it could be a strategic partner. But at the end of the day, by building that connection currency, by offering something up of value, and we'll talk about some of the strategies on how you go about doing that throughout this call. But to me, it really separates you from other people because, like you said, it builds trust, and you're right there with them in the heart of things that they care about immediately.
And now that you say that, I can see how you've done this. And this is a tip for everyone who's listening. It's so step one is about when you connect with someone, you find out what is their biggest passion, their biggest project. You now know what you can help them with. And if you can in any way help them with that, you do so. And I notice step 2, and I notice you do this a lot, Larry, and I guess I need to do this more. But you once you get an email or a Facebook connection, you stay in touch with them over, you know, and they might hear from you a year later just to see how things are going. I noticed you did that with me. I noticed I met you again. It was 2008. My son had just turned 1 year old, and I remember when we were talking, you asked me, you know, what was my biggest passion right now, and I said, hey, look, I just became a parent, and I'm really enjoying it. And I remember you remembered that because that Christmas, I received a card from you. And get this, folks, this was so cool. The card wasn't just any off-the-shelf card. Larry went to my Facebook, picked the most beautiful picture he found of me, my wife, and my son, and used some service that turned that picture into a card. So I got a Christmas card with my family picture on the front of it. And when I opened it, a message from Larry. It's now been 5 years. That is the only Christmas card that has a permanent spot on my office bookshelf. Now, do you think I remember Larry? Of course I do. What an amazing way to make yourself remembered and connect with someone.
You know, one of the things that I do as a habit, it's one of the things we also teach in our courses and programs, but like I actually, when your son was born, I actually put it into my iPhone as an appointment. So every single year, it alerts me to
Right,
when your son's birthday, when your birthday is, and when your anniversary is. Because to me, remembering those special occasions, tapping into things that are important to other people. I've learned a lot of lessons along the way. You know, you might meet someone who might be the hardest, toughest business person in the world, but I promise you, when they're around their kids, when they're around their
right.
grandkids, they're almost a different kind of individual altogether. And you know, one of the things we just talked about, which is a great lesson, is personalization. One of the things that I did, like you said, is I took something off of Facebook, which is, you know, a lot of people post photos of their family. What's interesting is a lot of people hear and see things right in front of them, but they don't take action upon that. So when it comes to networking or connecting in more effective ways, it really comes, how are you organized? It's not a question of someone not wanting to stay in touch. It's not a question of not wanting to add value to those in their network. It's their ability of using technology and process and systems to go do so. So it's like something simple as remembering someone's birthday. Now, you know, obviously on Facebook, and there's other ways of figuring this out. But like I said, I use my handy dandy smartphone to plug in an appointment, and it pops up every single
Right.
year. Yesterday, I think I had 5 or 6 friends that had birthdays, and I literally call them, and I'll create a video message to sing
Wow.
happy birthday. But again, it's the little things that go a long way, really make a big difference.
That's such an incredible idea. And I noticed, I remember getting a text message from you on my son's fifth birthday. It was amazing to me that 5 years later, even though you've never met my son, you remembered. Very cool. Now, I just want to apologize for one weird situation we're having for those of you who are listening. You'll notice the video of Larry is really fuzzy right now. And that's because I'm in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. Larry is in West Hollywood, and we are talking through Skype, right? But a few days back, there was an accident with the undersea internet cable that connects America and Asia. It goes under the Pacific, and when that cable gets damaged, the internet between America and Asia slows down, and that's what is happening right now as we're recording this. But don't worry, there are no charts or graphs or anything. Being able to see me and Larry is just a bonus. It's really the quality of the audio. And as long as you can hear us, you're going to be all good.
So let's just take them through real fast a simple 5-step system that they could connect with anyone that they want in more effective ways. So the first thing that they're going to want to do is, you know, at the end of the day, it's not B2B, it's not even B2C, it's human to human. My friend Brian Kramer always says that. And so when you're with someone, at the end of the day, you got to make an authentic connection. So that's the first step, okay? However you do it, business, personal, bond over some passion or something. So make a personal connection. Number 2, you want to find out what is most important to them. Oftentimes you can ask them. Other times you could do research without even having to ask them. I was able to connect with Sir Richard Branson inside of 30 seconds. I met him at a charity function by Sarah Blakely, who's now a billionaire from the company called Spanx. And Richard was on the dance floor with like 2 security guards around him. The music was blaring. But prior to me meeting my all-time hero from a business cycle standpoint, Richard, I had done my homework. I read article after article. And at the time, I asked myself, what are things that Richard, if I were to ask him or invite him, where I could engage with him for a second interaction? One of the things I did is I did my homework. And at the time, he was talking about giving away several $billion in profits for the environment of some of his companies. So one of the things that I did, I leveraged someone else in my network that was having an event. And when I saw Richard on the dance floor, I said, Richard, nice to meet you. There's a great opportunity for someone at your company to go to this private, you know, peer-to-peer, behind closed doors, CEO to CEO meeting regarding best practice practices on the environment. And I see there some money into that. And to my utter shock and amazement, literally, I went to follow up with an email, and it was his private email. He responded back. I was stunned, but it was because I did my homework. I found out what was important to him. So again, you could either ask them or you could do research on what's important to them. In the age of social media with Twitter and Facebook and LinkedIn and blogs and all these different things, you could oftentimes find out what's relatively important to someone, especially the more influential they are. So again, authentic connection, find out what's most important. The next step is, how can you help them get whatever's important to them? So you want to help them. And that might seem super simple, but I'm telling you, that is what separates people that are great connectors with just, average people who go out and network all the time and just get business cards and swap things back and forth. And from there, to me, the next part of it, or the next part of the formula, might be the greatest skill that you can hone. And it's called being a VC, not necessarily a venture capitalist, but being a value creator. If you could create value for anyone that you contact with, think about this. I think this is the most powerful skill in the world, and I'll tell you why. Whatever someone else wants or needs, someone else already has. So if you're trying to raise money for your company, someone else has that. If you could get Vision, if Mindvalley has your perfect client and you could partner and collaborate with Mindvalley, you could be exposed to an entire new audience. So again, it's what can you do? Could you create enough value for someone else or for someone else's business where they're going to be receptive to want to serve you back? And the last, but not the least most important thing, is the art of following up. If you help someone once, people have very short-term memories. And what you want to be able to do is have a good systematic approach to staying in touch and following up. And that's, we'll talk about some of those strategies on the tactics on how you go do those things. But that's a simple formula on how you can go connect with anyone.
Larry, that's a really, really, really cool 5-point checklist. Could you just repeat all 5 points again, just so it really sinks in for us?
Sure. So the first thing is you want to make an authentic personal connection with whoever you connect with. Second thing is you want to find out what is most important to someone. Third thing is you want to help them get whatever's important to them. And the fourth thing is you want to get really good at becoming a value creator, adding value to whoever is in your network. And then fifth, you want to have real good systematic follow-up so you can stay in touch over long periods of time. So the key thing is most people don't have what I consider the right amount of connection currency in the proverbial relationship bank account when they need something. Most people are always asking for favors when there's very little. It's so much easier when you need something if you've already created a lot of connection currency with someone. And then everything becomes easy and seamless to help you.
So here's what I noticed, right? And I think this could be a tip for everyone who's listening. As I've grown as an entrepreneur and a publisher, a lot of coaches and people who want to have their work published come to me at networking events or Awesomeness Fest because I try to keep myself really accessible. Even my email is public online, hellovision@mindvalley.com. I get about 50 emails a day. But what I notice is it's so rare that anyone tries to help me. Most people seem to want something. So the typical connection style I get, and this is what I'm not recommending, is, hey Vishen, I'm so glad I got to talk to you. Been a big fan of yours. I have this book I'm writing, and I'm wondering if what I need to do to get on your network. What I need to do to have you interview me. But that is so typical. It's when you after you've heard Larry speak, you can see how that's the completely wrong approach. But that's how most people connect with me. And my response is always, I'm sorry, I can't help you because it's a large company and there's a publishing department, but go email us at this website and someone will take care of you. And then they're just going in a queue, right? But every now and then, someone approaches me the right way. And this is that right way. So Larry, what was number 1 and 2 again?
Number 1 is you want to make a personal, authentic connection.
Personal, authentic connection.
Number 2, you want to find out what is most important to whoever you're connecting with.
And number 3?
Sometimes it's personal, sometimes it's business. 3, after you find out what's important to them, help them get it, whatever is important to them.
Right.
And four, you want to create value for them. You want to be really good at getting value created. And fifth, you want to have good systematic follow-up.
And so let's go with number 1, 2, and 3, right? Make a personal connection, find out what's valuable to them, what they value, what they need, figure out how to help them with that. All of us have some skill that we could help others with. When I was first starting out, so this is the right way to make a connection. When I was first starting out, and I was just a kid, I was under 30 years old. Mindvalley was a really small company, but I wanted to be able to work with some pretty big name authors, guys whose books were in the New York Times top 10 list. Now, I knew what my little skill was. I was decently good at social media. Many of these authors were in their 50s and 60s, and they were not really yet on Twitter or Facebook. I was decently good at that. I wasn't an expert, but I was good enough. I knew a little bit more than they did. So what I would do is I would say, hey, I'm a big fan of yours, but I notice your Facebook fan page or your Twitter profile is completely off. Since I'm such a fan, I would love to help you set that up, okay? How can we go about that? I would love to just give back to you with all the, and of course I've done my research, so I knew their books, I'd read their books. I would share with them a story of how one of their books changed my life, and then I would offer to help them. And that's all I would do. And one by one, I would connect with these authors. Through this process, I got invited to events, and that's how I met you. When I met you, I was just a kid. I met you in an event by an author. It was a party at his house close to Dallas. He brought me in because he had written a book, and I reached out to him and I said, I love your book, and I'm going to write a blog post about it, and I wanted to share that blog post with you. And it was a glowing review of his book. And then he invited me to his house. I was just a kid, but he so appreciated that simple blog post. He introduced me to you. And that's how it was through these connections that my career started taking off. So my message to the people listening is, don't underestimate yourself. All of you probably have one little tiny skill that you can give to the people you want to connect with. What is that skill? Maybe you're a great public speaking coach and you can coach them on their speaking. Maybe you are a great writer. I've had one brilliant lady connect with me because she said, look, I checked out one of your websites. I'm a school teacher and I am one of those people that you would call a grammar Nazi, and I found out that the following paragraphs could be worded better. So I've rewritten them for you. Feel free to use them. No payment necessary. I connected with her. And when she needed free courses to distribute to her students in the school, guess what? I gave it to them. So it is so easy to find that one little skill that you can give to make a connection. But I loved what you said, Larry. I loved the human element of it. I noticed that, I noticed a cool thing that you do. I think it happened this past year. I did not personally get a birthday message from you, but I got a birthday message on my son's birthday from you. And I thought that was really cool. You didn't bother to remember my birthday, which is fine because so many people remember my birthday. You remembered my son's birthday. And for many high-level individuals, that family connection is so important. It is so rare for someone to remember their son or daughter's birthday or their anniversary. And when they get that little message, it creates an instant trust that makes you stand out.
I just want to also share one other thing. You mentioned like everyone has a specific skill. Let's just even take to the bare basics. Let's just say someone's brand new and maybe they're not a world-class expert at anything yet, but they're working towards that. My belief is if you did nothing else and you started reaching out every single day to a couple of people in your network or new people that you want to have, and you ask them what is most important to them, what are their needs right now. If you reach out to 100, if you reach out to 3 people a day, I'm not saying to reach out to hundreds, I'm saying 3 a day. Over the next month, you'll basically be in touch with 100 relationships, 100 very valuable relationships. And if you're actually writing down and organizing what's important to them, maybe it's personal and maybe it's business, you're going to start to see trends. And you might be able to connect the dots. It might just be connecting them to a resource that Mindvalley has. It might be connecting them to a resource that Tony Robbins has. It might be connecting them to a resource that I have. And by just connecting the dots, that is gold all right there in itself. You know, when I started saying I was not a famous author, I was not a famous speaker, I wasn't a famous internet marketer, I was none of those things. At that party, as a matter of fact, Vision, that you're referring to, they actually reached out to me to see if they could get one of my clients, a gentleman named Bill Bartman. Bill used to be the 23rd wealthiest man in America. When I first met Bill, I met him at a National Speaker Association event. And I was so intrigued by this individual. I think the name of his book was something like The Billionaire No One Knows, or that was like a story on him in Inc. magazine. And I asked myself, what could I do that would be of value to this man? And I asked him two questions. And here are the two questions. I mean, I highly recommend you guys write these. These are $1 million questions. I asked him, I said, what are you most passionate about, in life now? And I asked him, like, what is his big thing? What was he trying to achieve? And by trying to understand literally what his most interesting project was at that moment in his life, he shared a couple instances. And I basically said, I followed up with him a couple days later. Follow-up is so critical. And I said, Bill, I think I can help you with the two most important priority projects that you have. I don't even want a dime for it. But I said, you don't know these authors, you don't know these speakers, and you don't know these promoters, but me, I think I'm a phone call away. I could at least vet who some of these individuals are. And I said, I'd be happy to do that for you. And so that was one thing. And, I connected with people like Alex Mandossian and a lot of other interesting people that over the years helped him tremendously. Interesting, today, when I met him, he had lost everything. So I connected Bill to people like Alex Mandossian. And at the time, I think Alex had a newsletter list of a couple 100,000 entrepreneurs. And what was interesting is, at this time, I was at a conference, at an event. I met an individual in the hallway. Never met him in my life, but I recognized him. His name was David Fry. And I got to talking to David, and I asked David the same two questions that I ask most people. What do you do for fun? And what's your most important project right now? David said to me he was looking for someone like that would resonate with entrepreneurs so he could give a DVD away. I said, I just met a gentleman who used to be National Entrepreneur of the Year. Would there be any value for you? He said, absolutely. I asked the same question of Alex Mandossian, who I did not know all that well. And I said, Alex, what are you working on? What's most important to you? Alex goes on and tells me he's working on something called Virtual Teleseminar Week. And he says he's looking for a whale. And I said, a whale? I said, the only whale that I know is Shamu, which we were at SeaWorld at the time because I was in his hotel room. And he goes, no, I'm looking for like a whale of a speaker that will be a big thing that would attract entrepreneurs. I said, I just met a gentleman who was National Entrepreneur of the Year and used to be the 23rd wealthiest man in America. Would that be of value for you? He said, yes. And I met another gentleman named Ron LeGrand. I was at a conference, literally waiting after he spoke at a Dan Kennedy conference, and I was a couple of hundred people in the line. And I knew that is the worst time to be waiting for someone. So I basically handed him my card. I said, listen, there's a self-made billionaire I want to introduce you to. I think you guys will hit it off. And I connected the two of them. So here's the moral of the story. I did not know any of those guys. I didn't know Bill. I barely knew Alex. I just met David Fry. And what's interesting is David ended up getting a DVD from Bill Bartman that they ended up giving away. And they ended up raising money to donate for someone's house whose house was demolished in a hurricane. I connected him with Ron LeGrand, and those guys ended up making millions of dollars together. I connected him to Alex Mandossian, and Alex was very beneficial in shaping his message over the years. And they've become great friends and stuff like that. So to me, even if you don't know anyone, by just asking the right question and putting yourself out there and having the belief that you can add value for others, I come from the belief I can add value to anyone, anytime, anywhere. It may not happen in the moment.
I see what you did there. That's brilliant. You didn't know anyone. You met all those people probably in the same month. But
Yes,
the
exactly.
same month. But by asking those two questions, what are you most passionate about? And what is the second question?
What's the most important project or goal that you're currently working on? And I ask, in the next 90 days, in the next several months, because that'll key in on what they
Yes.
care about right now.
And then by knowing what these high level people are looking for, what they are passionate about, what's their most important project, and you have already obtained knowledge, and that knowledge lets you be a connector who connects these people to each other. So theoretically, anyone listening, anyone here listening, could start building up their social currency by just knowing a few individual people, even at a surface level, knowing what's big to them, what matters to them, being able to somehow catalog this knowledge, and then act as a connector by connecting the dots.
Yeah, and then you create a lot of connection currency. We're talking about hacking and how do you short circuit a process. So let me share with everyone one of the things that I did. It's a unique distinction. When Vision and I started the call today, we talked about networking. I'm talking about connecting with influencers. So every industry has its own set of influencers. If you're an author, speaker, or coach, in your category, there's going to be certain people that have more currency online and with social media. If you're a real estate agent, in your local area, there's going to be people that you connect with that have more influence over deal flow. Whatever business you're in, there's always going to be those people. And if you happen to be adding value to influencers, typically, you're a phone call away or a connection away from typically whatever you might need. And then when you're adding massive value to those kind of people, it kind of multiplies. Don't you find the same thing?
Right, absolutely. The more people you know, the more your social currency grows, and you're right, it absolutely multiplies. So the beauty about what you're teaching is that, well, I see that you're enhancing that people's lives get enhanced in two big ways when they start thinking about connections this way. It's not networking, like you said, it's a deeper, richer form of connection. Number one, by being acquainted with so many influential people, their level of thinking grows. Like I know, spending time with Richard Branson on his island, an indirect connection from you, we maybe got to talk for about 3 hours over 4 days, one-on-one. Completely blew my mind. Because when you're there talking to a guy like Branson, there's a shift that happens in your consciousness. Because you're there with him, your self-worth, your self-identity grows. And because he's a man who has built $8 billion companies in 8 different billion-dollar industries, you start thinking, wow, maybe I could do something like that too. So you start dreaming higher, right? So the first big advantage is that your belief systems grow like crazy. If you have glass ceilings, they disappear. Because when you're with someone who has done what you used to think is impossible, you start believing you can too. But the second thing is, with every connection, you grow your own network to further connect with people. Like, for example, after I added value to Richard Branson, he connected me with a famous singer, Peter Gabriel. Peter Gabriel, he was an incredible singer. He had an amazing song in the 80s. Those of you who were teenagers in the 80s, like me, would remember it was called Sledgehammer.
I love that, yeah.
Right. So Peter Gabriel is the co-founder of this incredible group of world leaders. It's called the Elders, right? Nelson Mandela was part of it. Desmond Tutu is part of it. Muhammad Yunus, who won the Nobel Prize, is part of it. So the reason that Richard connected me with Peter Gabriel, and I ended up flying to London, I had breakfast with Peter in his own home. That was incredible, was because I had helped Richard with some advice on how to build his fan following on Facebook. And he wanted me to see if I could help Peter build the fan following for world leaders like Nelson Mandela, who was alive back then, and Desmond Tutu on Facebook. How cool a project is that, right? But it was because with every one connection, my own value grew, because they would talk about me. They would connect me to other people, and I could connect these people to each other. So it's just an amazing boost in your career path. To this day, when people ask me, what is one of the secrets to growing your company so fast with no bank loans or venture capital, it was knowing how to truly connect with people. So Larry, let's go into some advanced tactics. Already, I think you've shared, and I'm bringing up the curriculum, okay, that we've been talking about. Already you've shared some incredible content. Now, let's talk about some advanced tactics that people could bring in to, again, take connection to a whole other level. And then I'm going to have some questions for you.
Okay. So let's talk about, to me, organization is very critical, and using of technology is very critical. So let's just talk about something simple. Everyone has probably a smartphone, okay? So I'm going to give you a secret vision, and I normally only share this with our real high-end clients and stuff, but let me just, not that you guys are going to be able to see the inside of my iPhone, but let me tell you what I do. I find a field inside my smartphone, and again, anyone could use, you could put it in your notes field, your job field. I choose my job field in my smartphone, my iPhone, because it's searchable. So if I were to meet you for the very first time, Vision, what I would do is I would put a number of things. I would put where you live. I would put how I met you. Who do we meet through? Anything that you're passionate about. I would put your wife's name. I would put your child's name. I would put your birthday, your anniversary. If I had your son's birthday, I would put that information in there. But then here's where it gets really interesting. In your case, I would put personal development. I would put publishing, because you're a publisher. You're also an event producer because of Awesomeness Fest. You have all these different businesses. You also are in the app phone business. So what I would do is I would tag as many different things about you. And one of the things you talked about is you just talked about how good you are with social media. Literally, I have another client that works with Will Smith. And you know what he asked me yesterday? Mm-hmm. How to grow some of his celebrity clients' Facebook fan pages and the number of likes and some of these things. So guess what I'm going to do when I get off the phone? I'm going to connect you with those guys because you obviously have the background. But one of the things that allows me to create value quickly and for my clients to do it quickly is how they index and organize their contacts in such a way. So when you said to me, when you and I were in LA having a meeting, you said to me you were going to San Francisco and San Jose. And then what I did is I went into my phone and I punched in San Jose. I also punched in San Francisco. And we started going down. I started asking you, hey, I'm sure you know these people, but did you reach out to so-and-so? Did you reach out to this person? And you're like, oh my God, I didn't even think about that. But because the way I've organized my contacts in such a way, I could figure out who's in Silicon Valley. I could figure out quickly who's in San Francisco. I also tag them if they're a venture capitalist or whatever industry they're in, so I could quickly make an introduction or I could share a connection very quickly. And I don't remember off the top of my head who it was, but I remember there was a few people that I stimulated for you in real time on that trip over that you were going to have in San Francisco, Silicon Valley.
Right. I remember you introduced me to some really incredible individuals. That's a really, really, really cool tool.
And again, whether you put that in your smartphone or your CRM system like a Salesforce or an Act or an Infusionsoft or a company, there's a company out there called Contactually. And so that's another tool that I use. And what Contactually does, it'll say, hey, you haven't spoken to Mike in a few months. Do you want to reach out to Mike? And it's just a way of stimulating you so you can stay in touch and add value. Another thing that I like to do that is very simple and very easy to do is I believe sending high-value articles or high-value videos or resources is very valuable. So I'll give you a perfect example. You deal with a lot of authors, so do I. Jeff Hazlett, who you may have met over at Saying over the years, Jeff has written 2 best-selling books. And on both times, I got an email from Jeff, 12 and a half ways to help Jeff. And what the email basically talks about is what you can do on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn. You can write an Amazon review, all these different things you can do to support the author on his book. So Darren Hardy, publisher Success Magazine, he's part of our Saying Network. When he came out with his first book, I send him the same email. And I always joke, I always tell people, take out the links to Jeff Hazlett and just add your links. Because the first time Darren did it, he must have kept 1 or 2 of Jeff's links, and Jeff got some of the traffic. But the point is, anytime I have an author friend, I just send them the information. And again, going back to being well organized and sending out resources, there's an individual in my network, very well known, that when I bumped into him last time, I asked him how are his kids, and then I asked him how his wife was doing, and he told me he was going through a divorce, and I was really shocked to have him tell me this. But again, by going into my phone and my resources, I said, hey, would it be okay if I connected you to someone that runs a divorced dad's network? And he goes, that would be great. So again, it's all through being organized and having process, systems, and technology to make it easier for you to do one thing, and that's to add value for the people that you care about most.
That's a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful model. And so you've given us a really interesting checklist now that I want to read out to people. And if you do this, just raise your hand, do a mental check. But if you don't, you know what you need to work on. So this is Larry's checklist to make sure that you're doing well in terms of building social connection currency. Question number 1, do you believe relationships are important to your success? Question number 2, how many of you just stay in touch with people to see how they are doing? Not to sell them anything, but just to see how they are doing. Number 3, how many of you believe that you can provide value to anyone you connect with? And as Larry and I spoke earlier, you could instantly start providing value just by being the person who connects the dots. Number 4, do you have a permission-based newsletter? Now, I know this doesn't apply to everyone. It applies to those of you who are coaches or authors who have a website. Number 5, how many of you have a strategic connection plan for your top 100 most important relationships? Now, don't think that what Larry is talking about applies to everyone in your address book. Most of us in the age of Facebook, I know I have about 2,000 friends, right, on Facebook, but we all have our top 100. They may be friends, they may be family, they may be business relationships. Do you have a strategic connection plan to constantly stay in touch with them? I realized when I read this question, Larry, I have that plan for my top 10. I should be having it for my top 100. I realize I'm lacking there. The next question, how many of you know the 20% of your clients or strategic partners that provide 80% of your money and future opportunities? Beautiful question. I love this one. There's always that 80-20 rule, right? Number 7, how many of you call your friends or send cards on their birthdays and anniversaries? Number 8, how many of you research the speakers of the events you attend and reach out to them in advance? I love this one, Larry. Brilliant list. Let me tell you a story on this one. So I just got an email from a lady who said, Vishen, I love the work you do, but I notice that some of your products don't work very well on mobile phones. I have an idea on how to make the mobile phone, iPhone experience much better, and I'd love to help you with it. So I responded to them and I said, thank you so much for noticing. How can we connect? She said, don't worry. I've already researched you. I know you're speaking at this event. I'm going to be attending this event. Let's grab a cup of coffee and I'll show you how to make this work. And so we connected. It was a brilliant, brilliant, brilliant way for her to connect with me over coffee. And there were like 100 people waiting to connect with me. She was the only one I had coffee with just because she applied this strategy. Totally, totally recommend it.
And by the way, one thing, especially with busy, successful people, if you reach out to them in advance, most people try to get to them right after their speech. That is like the worst time because they're bombarded by all sorts of people. So what she did, not only did she reach out to you in advance, she added something of value to you, and I think that's the key.
It was a brilliant strategy. Number 9, how many of you record the notes and your conversations with your clients and partners in some sort of system? 10, how many of you have a system where you systematically reach out and create value for your most valued relationships in your network? That's a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful one. I'd love for you to talk on that a little bit more, Larry. Let's come back to that. How many of you leverage trigger events and reach out and add value to busy, influential people? I guess what you mean by trigger events are birthdays, but not just their birthday, birthdays of friends, family, kids, right?
So a trigger event is there's a personal trigger event or a business. So a personal is the birthday, the anniversary, a graduation, a special occasion, a vacation. A business thing could be they're raising money. They like Uber, for example, literally today raised like a $1.2 billion. That's a trigger event. A company that's got a publicly traded business, every quarter they have an earnings report. Someone got, a job promotion. Tony Robbins, for example, he just came out with his latest book. Those are all trigger events on a business.
Beautiful. And the final one, Larry, and for everyone listening is how many of you know the three most important goals for your top 25 most valuable relationships? Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful question. Beautiful one to have. And let's go back to number 10, okay? Because I think we've covered all of these. Number 10 is one I think we can go a little bit deeper. How many of you have a system where you systematically reach out and create value for your most valued relationships in your network? Tell us about that, Larry.
So a couple things that I've gotten good at that we recommend for our students and clients. Number one, I'm a huge believer in events, live events, virtual events, all sorts of events. So for example, what events will you be going to? What events will you be hosting? How can you add value for your network for events? One of the people I got to connect with years ago, or reconnect with, was Les Brown, the motivational speaker, because my friend Manny Goldman, he said, "Hey Larry, Les is going to be speaking in Los Angeles. Would you go hear him speak?" I hadn't seen Les up at that point in years, and I was super excited. So it wasn't my event. I wasn't hosting the event. It was, he was just letting me know. So I think, leveraging live events, leveraging virtual events. I'm sure you guys at Mindvalley put together tremendous webinars or live streams or Google Hangouts, and there's constant, tremendous, great content all over the place. Literally just today, I was watching a video of our friend Frank Kern interview Tony Robbins, and it was fantastic. And what I started to ask myself was, who in my network, now granted, I'm going to throw it into my newsletter, the interview, but more importantly, I'm going to send out some specific emails to people that I know in the financial services business and people that I think that really could really benefit from that message. And I'm going to share not only the video, but maybe how to buy the book. So again, let's talk about trigger events. Again, that could be personal and or business. And to me, trigger events are happening all the time. So for example, I was just watching Florida State. I'm a Florida State grad. You're a Michigan grad. Michigan, they're hiring a new coach. I don't know if that was Nebraska. I don't know did they let their coach go or no?
I stopped following Michigan football several years ago.
Okay. But literally, here's a real example. Florida State plays Georgia Tech in football this coming weekend, okay? One of the guys that I know in my network, I don't talk to him very often. He was a client of mine from like 15 years ago. He sold his first company for $1.5 billion, okay? He sold multiple companies. His most recent company sold for 100 times revenue. That's a good number for an entrepreneur. So anyway, he's a Georgia Tech grad. So I text him literally the moment I find out Georgia Tech is going to be playing Florida State. So I'm like, hey, maybe we should have a little friendly wager. He's like, sure, let's do $1. I'm like, okay. So today I sent him an email saying, hey, let's double our wager. The loser pays for lunch, and it's $2 on top of that. But I also used it as a trigger event. He owns and he's involved with a huge number of companies. So it's like, what's going on in your world? Are there charity events? So the holiday season is coming up. We just had Thanksgiving in America. Christmas is coming up. There's Kwanzaa. I mean, there's all sorts of events. There's, Veterans Day. I look at the calendar from Mother's Day to Father's Day to, Assistance Day, all sorts of things. And I ask myself, who could I reach out to with what part of information? And then how could I serve up something of value? Sometimes it's just to say hello. One of the things we asked about in the questions is, do you reach out to your network just to see how people are doing? I find so often in business, people are so focused on selling all the time, all they can do is get on the phone and try to sell something. And I think it's so refreshing when you find someone's just reaching out just to check in. And then if you're checking in with something that you care about, even better.
Beautiful. Larry, I love that. Thank you so much for sharing all your wisdom with us. And I love this list. This is a wonderful checklist. I think what you've done over here in this call, which is really interesting, is you've just given people a whole new way of looking at their career potential, and in a way, their self-worth. Because I know that my feelings of self-worth soared so much when I started being able to connect with influential individuals. And the beauty about what you're teaching is that you're not just helping people grow their career, grow their connections, get more clients, but you're really helping people grow themselves, because as their circle of influence grows, as the top 5 people that they hang out with level up, they too start leveling up. And when you see that you have the ability to have a conversation with someone like Richard Branson or Paula Abdul, people who are modern pop icons, your definition of yourself, your self-worth gets to whole other levels. So thank you for what you've given me, what you've helped me experience in life, and how you've helped me grow. And thank you for bringing that wisdom to everyone on this call as well. Thank you, Larry.
I appreciate it. By the way, if they just go to larrybenet.com, there's a lot of free, valuable resources that they could just download, and we'll send them a report on step by step on how they can further connect and grow these skills. Because ultimately, that'll be the number one predictor of their career success, is the quality of their relationships. So thank you for allowing me this opportunity.
Right, absolutely. And you know, it's kind of funny. Just one more thing I just realized. We spend all this money getting an education because it's supposed to help us grow in our careers. But nowhere in university did they ever teach me this stuff. And what I learned from the art of connecting is probably worth 1 or 2 years at Michigan, because it's delivered so much more to me. Thank you for this new type of education. I'll see you soon, Larry. Take care.
Vision, I appreciate it.